Hello, welcome to the LaRouche PAC Weekly Report for June the 27th, 2012. I'm John Hofel, and joining me in the studio today are Cody Jones and Ben Denniston of The Basement and Lyndon LaRouche. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning. Well, this is not really a good morning because what we're approaching toward the end of this week is one of the most dangerous conditions in the transatlantic region since the last Great War. And this may be worse than the last Great War. What has happened, and we'll deal with this at this opening here now, because it is momentous. What has happened is that as of Friday or Saturday, as it stands now, there's the likelihood of two continents collapsing. One, Western and Central Europe. Second, the United States, and other things. The problem is this. We have built up, in the transatlantic region in particular, we've built up the greatest swindle in all known human history. Nothing has been on this scale. The so-called nominal debt of nations standing out there, a debt which is now accelerating, not just accelerating, but accelerating at a high speed. You can't keep up with it. What we're faced with is a breakdown crisis of the entire transatlantic system. And as it stands now, on the majority of possibilities, is that we will not come out of this alive economically and politically. What is planned on the European side is the elimination of all nation states west of Russia and so forth. All nation states west of that area are now presently doomed to become extinct entities, while the whole mess is put into one big package. A similar process, even more violent, is going on inside the United States. The U.S. financial system, it presently is now in the process of disintegration. The two phenomena, that of the European collapse and that of the prospective U.S. collapse of the economy of the U.S., are now in tandem. They're interconnected. So that therefore, I'm almost 90 years of age, pushing it. It's not much difference anymore between what I am and 90 years. And we're about to see the end of civilization as we've known it, at least in the transatlantic region. And it's happening, as of now, it's happening on Friday and Saturday. Now, think about what the awareness is of the typical American, in particular, as much as the European. The Europeans are much more upset about this. They're much more involved in it. Because what's happening to Europe is all nation states in the Western European, Central European area are now giving up their sovereignty to become a stateless wonder under British control. The same kind of thing is happening in the United States. Well, what remains of the Obama administration, and the Obama administration is admittedly on the edge of collapsing. It's about to be wiped out. It's probable. It's not a certain thing, but it's probable. Everything is being done. The same thing, you see the same scenario that came up with Nixon, where Nixon was thrown out of office. And he was thrown out of office because he was caught lying all the time. He kept lying. And they used those lies as a way of getting rid of him. And that's the situation we're in here. So we're in the point where the Obama administration is on the edge of being collapsed by relevant people inside the government of the United States and others. This is in process. Whether it will happen or not is not certain, but it's certainly what is in process. Now, on top of that, just to make it interesting, the U.S. government is now planned to rape the income and potential income of the American population as never before in history. This will be virtually a financial extinction event if it happens. What's happening is now the two problems, the imminent collapse by Saturday, which is now planned for the dissolution of the nations of Western and Central Europe into a common mess. All sovereignty is gone, or will have gone. A similar process is occurring in the United States. Now, such events, not on this magnitude, but of a similar character, have happened in European civilization earlier. And it's about to happen again, and this is the biggest one, the biggest collapse that was ever conceived by modern man. Because what we have is a escalating magnitude of worthless money, absolutely worthless money, worthless credit. The holdings of the major banks, are the most powerful banks in terms of nominal credit, in Europe and the United States are about to go belly up. And there is no rescue planned. Now, we could solve this problem if we simply enacted Glass-Steagall in the United States now, not at some distant future time, but now. Later than now is too late for the United States. It's too late now for any of the nations of Europe under these conditions. This is what we are faced with. And look at this. You know, it's not uncommon in terms of major wars, especially since about 1990, the time that they got our little chancellor, Bismarck, out of office. And at that point, when Bismarck was out of office, once that was happened, of changes occurred in German policy. Prior to that, Bismarck had managed to prevent a war, a world war, from breaking out. Because Bismarck had intervened with Russia and also with other countries, including Austria, to guaranteeing that if Austria would start a Balkan War, that Russia and Germany would prevent other nations from participating in that war. So that Bismarck had been for several years the only preventer of a general world war by this agreement which he had with the Tsar of Russia at that time. Once Bismarck was ousted, immediately World War I began. And World War I has never gone away. What has happened, it has come out of its hole like some kind of a creature and gone back into the hole after a war or a series of wars. Then it came out of its hole again. So that World War I and World War II and this World War, which is threatened right now, are all one of the same piece. It is a trend in European history, a characteristic of current European history, which has persisted since the time that Bismarck was kicked out of office in Germany. And that's what so we're now at the same kind of thing. We're now on the guns of August. This weekend is like the guns of August. You have a highly superinflated European economy, which is implicitly totally bankrupt in its present form. There is no value in this thing because there's so much crap out there on top of the actual money which has worth. And the same thing is true in the United States. We have so much crap loaded into the banking system, we talk about saving the banks. These banks should not exist. What we should do, very simply, is we'll take most of the banks, we'll look at the accounts. And the accounts which are valid, that is, they're commercial accounts, valid accounts, but which are not speculative accounts. And the speculative accounts will be told, go off on your own. You're not getting any bailout. If you can't pay your bills, you're finished. But we'll take those parts of banks which are actually committed to normal banking, to commercial banking, not speculative banking. And we will save them. And we can take other measures which can protect the United States. But as of now, even though there's an increasing willingness on the part of members of the Congress, especially prominent ones, to take action for the bailout. A Glass-Steagall issue is on the table, and only pigs will oppose Glass-Steagall. And you know what you do with pigs. All right, so but there's no action now planned for before the election to do that. There are people who are talking about it. There are people committed to that, but it's not happening. So what happens is, therefore, as of Saturday, or this week, you are faced with a threat, unless some miraculous good thing happens, the threat of a process of a breakdown of the transatlantic system. I think this event is worthy of attention. And therefore, I mention it now. There are things that I know how to do and others know how to do. The problem which I mentioned to our associates yesterday is the problem is essentially, and it's often been the case of great wars, for example, in the past. Great wars have been planned and built up and set into motion before they were unleashed. And it's only after the war was unleashed that nations discovered what they'd bought a part of. And they went through what we call great wars. But all of the wars since 1890 in the transatlantic region have been one war. A continuation of one war is like a monkey coming out of its cage or an animal coming out of its hole. It goes back into its hole to recuperate, then comes out again as another form of it, but it's the same old war. Somewhat different players, you've eliminated a few, and so forth. And that's where we are. And if you think about what people are thinking out there in the streets here, in the streets of the United States, and you think, what are they thinking about what can happen by Saturday? Do you realize that potentially what's being set up by Geithner and company in the United States, the greatest bailout ever conceived in history, and the rate of increase of the bailout inflation is hyperinflationary expansion. The rate of hyperinflation is accelerating. It's accelerating in Europe, and it's accelerating inside the United States. And the people out there are trying to think of business as usual. We're in a period where only the kind of actions which I would propose and I do propose, only those types of actions could save the United States and Europe alike from the greatest crisis in modern history. And it's coming on in the area of this weekend. Exactly how it will unfold is uncertain. What is certain is we don't do something about it, the worst hell is going to bust out, and it's going to bust out now in the present period. And therefore, I think that matter is of slight importance to everyone, including us here. Mm-hmm. So let's look at what the mission we have to fulfill, presuming that the economy still exists next week or the week after.
Right.